Be me, Annie. 38. HR director at consulting firm. Believe I'm literally saving the world one workplace policy at a time. Spent entire career building reputation as the person who creates inclusive environments. Dad Ralph works in accounting 3 floors down from my office. He's 67, been with company for 23 years, quiet guy who just wants to retire peacefully. We barely talk anymore because I can't stand his outdated worldview. Always lecturing him about his problematic language at family dinners. Mom died 5 years ago. Dad lives alone in tiny studio apartment downtown. His whole life is work and watching old movies on weekends. Monday morning, getting my usual oat milk latte. Overhear 2 junior employees talking about some drama in accounting. Ears perk up because drama means potential policy violations. Find out there was a situation with one of the older employees. Heart starts racing with excitement about potential teachable moment. Immediately start investigating like I'm solving a hate crime. Pull security footage, interview witnesses, document everything meticulously. Turns out Dad was eating lunch with 3 co-workers last Friday. Conversation somehow turned to pronouns and workplace bathroom policies. Co-worker Robert mentioned his teenage daughter identifying as non-binary. Another co-worker, Sarah, was talking about her company's new inclusive language training. Dad apparently listened for a while, then said casually, "Well, there are only 2 genders, but I suppose people can call themselves whatever makes them happy." Said it without malice, just old man trying to be diplomatic, but also clearly stating his belief that biological sex determines gender. Witness accounts confirm he wasn't being aggressive or discriminatory, just expressed his personal view during casual conversation, didn't tell anyone else what to think or how to behave. Actually tried to be respectful by adding the part about whatever makes them happy. But I can feel my blood pressure rising as I read the incident reports. This is exactly the kind of systemic bigotry I've dedicated my career to eliminating. Spend all day Tuesday building case against him. Research company policy manual for relevant violations. Find clause about maintaining inclusive environment free from discriminatory speech. Technically, his comment could be interpreted as invalidating transgender identities, even though he wasn't talking to any transgender employees, and wasn't trying to hurt anyone. But impact matters more than intent, obviously. Call emergency meeting with CEO Michael and legal counsel Jennifer. Present my findings like I'm prosecuting war criminal. This type of exclusionary language creates hostile environment for LGBTQ+ employees. Even if intended as casual comment, it perpetuates harmful gender binary assumptions. Company has legal obligation to protect all employees from discriminatory speech. CEO looks uncomfortable, but nods along. Legal says, better safe than sorry, regarding potential lawsuits. Recommend immediate termination to send clear message about company values. Don't mention that employee in question is my own father. Figure my personal relationship is irrelevant to professional decision. Actually feel proud that I'm being objective and not showing favoritism. This is what true equality looks like, holding everyone to same standard regardless of personal connections. Wednesday morning, Dad gets called into HR meeting. Not my meeting, obviously, handled by my subordinate Jessica. Dad sits there confused while Jessica reads termination letter. Violation of company inclusion policy through discriminatory language regarding gender identity. Creating potentially hostile work environment for protected class employees. Immediate termination effective today. Final paycheck will be mailed. Dad apparently just sat there silent for a moment, then asked quietly, "What exactly did I say wrong?" Jessica explained about impact on transgender employees. Dad said, "I didn't know we had any transgender employees." Jessica said that wasn't the point. Policy applies regardless. Dad nodded slowly, cleaned out his desk, left without making scene. Feel surge of professional satisfaction. Finally proved that I treat all policy violations equally. No special treatment for family members. This is what progressive leadership looks like. Company culture is now stronger and more inclusive. Dad calls me that evening. "Annie, I got fired today. Jessica said it was for something I said about genders." "I know, Dad. I was part of the review process." You were involved in firing me?" "I had professional obligation to report policy violation when I learned about it." "But Annie, I'm your father." And that's exactly why I couldn't show favoritism. It wouldn't be ethical. Long silence on the phone. Can hear him breathing heavily. "Dad, you said something that could make transgender employees feel unwelcome." "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just talking with my friends." "Intent doesn't matter, Dad. Impact does. This is basic inclusion 101. Another long silence. "I've been there 23 years, Annie. I was going to retire next year. Maybe this is opportunity to examine your problematic beliefs about gender. I don't understand what I did wrong. Google Transgender 101 Dad. Educate yourself. It's not my job to explain basic human dignity. He hangs up without saying goodbye. Feels slightly bad, but also proud of maintaining professional integrity. Post on LinkedIn about difficult decisions in creating inclusive workplaces. Get 47 likes from other HR professionals. Several comments praising my commitment to equity. Weeks go by, Dad stops calling. Assume he's just sulking about facing consequences for his actions. Probably watching Fox News and complaining about cancel culture. Decide to give him space to process and hopefully grow. Busy season at work anyway, implementing new bias training programs. Too important to get distracted by family drama. Month later, run into Robert from accounting at coffee shop. He asks how my dad is doing since the firing. He's fine, hopefully learning from the experience. Robert looks confused. Annie, I don't think you understand what happened that day. Explains that conversation started because his daughter came out as non-binary. Dad actually defended Robert's parenting when other co-worker criticized it, said something like, kids go through phases, but parents should be supportive. Only made the two genders comment when directly asked his opinion. Immediately followed up with, but people should be treated with respect regardless. Feel slight unease, but push it down. Robert doesn't understand the nuances of microaggressions. Good intentions don't excuse harmful impact. Dad still expressed exclusionary viewpoint that invalidates transgender identities. Termination was still justified under company policy. 3 months pass. Completely absorbed in major workplace culture initiative. Implementing mandatory pronoun training for all employees. Designing gender-neutral bathroom signage. Updating employee handbook with comprehensive inclusion language. This is the most meaningful work I've ever done. Finally, creating truly equitable workplace. Christmas approaches, haven't spoken to Dad since termination call. Assume he's spending holidays with his brother Tommy or sister Lisa. Too busy with year-end performance reviews anyway. Several employees thank me for creating more welcoming environment. Feel validated that difficult decision about Dad was correct. January 3rd, get call from Dad's landlord, Kevin. Are you Ralph's daughter, Annie? Yes, what's wrong? I'm sorry to tell you this, but your father passed away yesterday. World suddenly feels tilted. What? How? What happened? Neighbor complained about smell, found him in his apartment. Looks like he'd been dead for several days. Natural causes, heart attack probably. I'm so sorry. Race to Dad's apartment building. Police officer Mark explains what they found. Dad died alone on his couch watching television. Empty pizza boxes and beer bottles everywhere. Looked like he hadn't been taking care of himself. No signs of struggle, just elderly man who died alone. Body wasn't discovered for 3 days until smell alerted neighbors. Walk into his tiny studio apartment. Place is disaster. Nothing like neat organized man I remember. Bills piled up on kitchen table, many marked final notice. Unemployment benefits paperwork scattered around. Rejection letters from job applications. Thank you for your interest, but we've decided to pursue other candidates. Position has been filled. We'll keep your resume on file. Find notebook on coffee table. Dad's handwriting documenting his job search. Applied to 47 different positions over 4 months. Only got 3 interviews. Each one ended with, "We'll be in touch." Last entry dated 2 weeks before his death. Interview at Stewart & Associates went well, but they said I was overqualified. Think they're worried about age discrimination lawsuit. Running out of savings. Don't know what to do. Keep reading through his notes. Annie won't talk to me since the firing. Tried calling Tommy, but he's busy with his own family. Lisa lives too far away. Can't burden her with this. Don't want anyone to see me like this. So ashamed about getting fired after 23 years. What will people think? Find stack of printed articles on coffee table, all about transgender rights and inclusion policies. Dad had Googled everything like I told him to, highlighted sections about preferred pronouns and gender identity, written notes in margins trying to understand. Transgender means feeling like different gender than birth sex? Non-binary means not identifying as male or female. Gender expression different from biological sex? Discover letter addressed to me, never sent. Hands shaking as I read Dad's careful handwriting. Dear Annie, I've been trying to understand what I did wrong that day. I read all the articles you suggested and more. I think I see now why my words might have hurt people. That wasn't my intention, but I know you said intention doesn't matter. I'm sorry I embarrassed you at work. I know you worked hard to build your career. I just wish we could talk about this. I miss you, and I miss your mother. Duh. I don't understand why losing my job means losing my daughter too. I love you even though you're ashamed of me. Dad. Completely break down crying in his empty apartment. Realized Dad spent months alone, jobless, trying to understand why his life fell apart. Couldn't get hired anywhere because of age and termination record. Too proud to ask family for help. Too ashamed to maintain friendships after getting fired. Died alone. Watching reruns, surrounded by job rejection letters, landlord Kevin finds me sobbing on Dad's couch. I'm sorry for your loss. He was a good tenant. Very quiet. Did you know he was struggling? Well, he was behind on rent last few months, but I gave him extensions. Seemed like a nice old man. Always said good morning in the hallway. Kept to himself mostly. Didn't see him much toward the end. Neighbor Patricia from across the hall stops by. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry about your father. He was such a sweet man, always held the elevator for me. I kept meaning to check on him when I stopped seeing him around. But you know how it is, everyone's so busy. I had no idea he didn't have family nearby. He never mentioned having a daughter. Spend hours going through Dad's belongings, find photo albums I haven't seen in years, pictures of him teaching me to ride bike, coaching my softball team in middle school, walking me down the aisle at my wedding before divorce, attending my college graduation, beaming with pride, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, family vacations, discover stack of my school report cards and certificates, kept every single one from kindergarten through graduate school, even kept newspaper clipping when I got promoted to HR director, article about local woman breaking barriers in corporate leadership. He had circled my name and written, "So proud," in the margin. Find recent bank statements. Dad had been donating $50 monthly to LGBTQ+ youth charity. Started the donations 3 days after getting fired. Continued until his account was nearly empty. Memo line on each donation, in memory of Annie's values. Call my Uncle Tommy to arrange funeral. Annie? Jesus Christ, where have you been? What do you mean? Ralph's been calling everyone for months, desperate for work. I told him to call you, but he said you two weren't speaking. Said something about getting fired and disappointing you. Why didn't you help him? He was your father. Explain about the workplace incident and policy violation. Long silence on the phone. Annie, he said there are only 2 genders during lunch conversation. Yes, which created hostile environment for... And you got him fired for that? I had professional obligation to... You got your own father fired for expressing an opinion? Tommy, you don't understand workplace inclusion policies. No, Annie, you don't understand family. Funeral planning becomes nightmare. Dad's friends from work, all awkward around me. They know I was involved in his termination. Whispered conversations stop when I walk by. Robert from accounting approaches at viewing. Annie, I need you to know something. Your dad defended my kid that day. When Steve said non-binary kids were just confused. Ralph told him that wasn't his place to judge. He was actually being supportive before the gender comment. More co-workers share similar stories. Dad standing up for younger employees, facing age discrimination, helping single mothers with schedule flexibility, covering shifts for people with sick kids. Always respectful, never complained about workplace changes. Just old-fashioned guy trying to adapt to modern world. Sarah from his department pulls me aside. Your father was good man, Annie. He just didn't understand all the new terminology. But he never treated anyone badly. After the incident, he asked me to explain transgender issues. Spent his lunch breaks reading articles to educate himself. I think he was really trying to grow. Realized Dad wasn't malicious bigot I convinced myself he was. Just elderly man raised in different time, trying his best. Genuinely confused by rapid cultural changes, but willing to learn when guided with patience instead of punishment. I destroyed his life over single comment that wasn't meant to harm anyone. Funeral service sparsely attended. Few co-workers, couple neighbors, Uncle Tommy, and Aunt Lisa. No friends, because Dad became increasingly isolated after firing. Pastor mentions devoted father who worked hard all his life. Took pride in his daughter's success. Faced recent challenges with dignity and grace. Can barely sit through service without crying. After burial, Tommy confronts me in parking lot. I hope you're satisfied, Annie. What do you mean? You made your point about workplace policies. Cost your father everything, but at least you maintained your principles. He died alone because he was too ashamed to ask for help. Ashamed because his own daughter thought he was a terrible person. Try to defend my actions, but words sound hollow. I was doing my job, Tommy. I couldn't show favoritism. Your job? Your job was more important than your father? You had professional obligation to destroy him over lunch conversation? He's been alone since your mother died, Annie. Work was all he had left, and you took that away too. Drive home in shock. Everything feeling surreal. Check. LinkedIn and see my post about difficult decisions in inclusive workplaces. 47 likes from HR professionals praising my integrity. Comments about putting principles before personal relationships. Feel sick reading my own words about maintaining professional standards. Spend weeks going through Dad's things. Find more evidence of his attempts to understand modern gender concepts. Library books about LGBTQ plus history and terminology. Printed articles with his handwritten notes in margins. He was genuinely trying to educate himself after the incident. Wanted to understand why his comment was harmful. Discover he had written an apology letter to Robert, explaining that he supported Robert's parenting, apologizing if his gender comments seemed judgmental, asking for help understanding appropriate workplace language. Letter was never sent because he got fired before finishing it. Find search history on his old computer. How to support transgender people. What does non-binary mean? Workplace inclusion training. How to apologize for offensive comment. Age discrimination in hiring. How to explain termination to employers. Unemployment benefits for seniors. Realize Dad spent final months isolated and confused, trying to understand what he did wrong, researching concepts completely foreign to his generation, desperately seeking employment while battling age discrimination, too proud to burden family with financial struggles, believing his own daughter found him irredeemable. Call Jessica, who handled Dad's termination. I've been thinking about your father's case. Looking back, maybe we could have handled it differently too. Progressive discipline, sensitivity training, education opportunity. Termination might have been excessive for first offense, especially since he seemed genuinely confused about policy. Too little too late, but confirms my growing doubts about decision. Research company policy manual more carefully. Find sections about rehabilitation before termination. Considering intent and willingness to learn. Escalating interventions for policy violations. Realize I cherry-picked strictest interpretation to justify firing. Could have recommended counseling, training, written warning. Chose nuclear option because I wanted to make statement. Months pass. Grief mixed with growing guilt. Can't focus at work because every inclusion meeting reminds me of Dad. Implementing policies designed to protect people from harm. But I used those same policies to harm someone who loved me. Started questioning whether my approach actually creates inclusion, or just creates fear of saying anything potentially offensive. Uncle Tommy calls 6 months after funeral. Annie, I found some more of Ralph's things. He had been writing you letters but never sent them. Want me to mail them or throw them away? Mail them, please. Receive package with dozen unsent letters. Dad's progression from confusion to understanding to despair. First letters angry and defensive about political correctness. Middle letters showing genuine effort to learn and grow. Final letters just sad and lonely, missing his daughter. I don't know what I did that was so unforgivable. I said there are 2 genders, which I believe, but I also said people deserve respect. I've been reading about this, and I think I understand better now. Maybe there are different ways to think about gender. I just want my daughter back. Last letter dated week before his death. Dear Annie, I finally understand what you tried to teach me. Gender is more complicated than I thought. People can feel different inside than their biology. I may not understand it completely, but I can respect it. I'm sorry it took me so long to learn. I'm sorry I embarrassed you at work. I know you worked hard to build inclusive environment. I don't want to be obstacle to progress. I love you, and I'm proud of who you've become, even if I'm not part of your life anymore. I hope you're happy and making the world better. Love always, Dad. Completely devastated by final letter. Dad had evolved his thinking through months of self-education, reached understanding about gender diversity on his own, still loved and supported me despite losing everything, died believing I was ashamed of him, died thinking he was too problematic for my progressive values, start questioning everything about my approach to workplace inclusion, wonder if creating safe spaces sometimes means destroying people, whether zero-tolerance policies actually promote understanding, or just silence people through fear of punishment. Realize I prioritized ideological purity over human compassion. Visit Dad's grave on his birthday. Leave flowers and sit there for hours. Apologize for choosing workplace politics over family. Promise to honor his memory by practicing inclusion with more wisdom. Understand now that real progress requires patience, education, grace, not just punishment for imperfect language. Resign from H position 6 months later. Can't continue enforcing policies I used to destroy my father. Colleagues think I'm having breakdown or abandoning progressive values. Actually learning that rigid ideology without compassion helps no one. Inclusion should bring people together, not tear families apart. Dad died alone in his apartment because I chose professional reputation over family. His final months were spent trying to understand why his daughter abandoned him, educated himself about gender diversity because he loved me, never got chance to show me his growth, never got apology he deserved. I became everything I claimed to oppose, someone who caused harm through inflexibility, realized the bitter irony too late. Spent career fighting for marginalized people's dignity. Destroyed elderly man's dignity over casual comment, claimed to promote understanding while refusing to show understanding, created hostile environment for my own father in name of inclusion. He died alone because I was too righteous to show him mercy.